Last time on Little Wars TV, we put a real lieutenant general in command of 5 veteran wargamers to find out if a new invasion plan could rewrite history at Gallipoli. Our game pits retired General Rhys Jones of New Zealand against one of YouTube's biggest military historians, Griffin Johnsen, the Armchair Historian. Today, their operational plans collide across 3 tabletops in a massive miniature wargame. In part 1, the Allies got off to a fast start, catching the Ottomans by surprise and already threatening to cut the peninsula in half within hours of the invasion. Unlike 1915, today's Turks find themselves on the back foot, and we're about to find out if Griffin can stabilize the front line before it collapses. Everything hangs in the balance, and I hope that you join us for the conclusion of our Gallipoli Wargame right here on Little Wars TV.
Hello, I'm Rhys Jones, a retired general from the New Zealand Army and an avid historian of the Gallipoli campaign. If I reflect on how the British plan was, the original British plan, if you look back on that, basically it was a robust plan, didn't really take into account the enemy, though, which was problem number 1. The Turks had certainly learnt the lesson from the British naval bombardment of decades before that sailed through the Strait.
If you missed part 1, you should pause here and watch that video to see both sides develop new operational plans for the first day of the invasion. As we switch over to the tabletop with 6mm scale miniatures, the opening hours have already gone very well for the Allies. Chow's lone Ottoman brigade at Cape Helles is facing Ed's entire 29th Division. This is a much more powerful southern focus than Griffin or any of the Turkish players anticipated. And Chow is the one about to pay the price for that miscalculation.
You hear a lot of battleship.
You got it, Chow! Good job, buddy!
We'll find out later.
All right. Okay, so we had received some general orders that if there were landings at certain places, there would be ferocious counterattacks, and we would, if not, then we were to withdraw up the peninsula to reinforce. I don't imagine that very many of my men will actually survive this battle at this point. My command is going to get annihilated. I am going to slow them up. They're going to have to fight through me or climb over my dead bodies because that's what's coming.
I don't want to hear any complaining because this is what the Turks were dealt with historically, and they lasted quite long.
No, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Yeah, I'm not going to last that long though.
All right, the borderers are going to attempt to activate.
Which one's that?
This
Oh, okay. Yep.
I'm just going to swing around here, Chow. Let's activate them again. 283.
Yep.
They do not. They fail. But let's use a commander token.
Sure.
So now you need a 4.
Yep. That is not a 4.
That is not a 4.
All right.
In the rules we're playing today, battalions can be given orders multiple times in the same turn, as you just heard Miles attempt. But after the first order, each subsequent order gets progressively harder to implement. The game is called 1914, published by Great Escape Games in 2018. The command token system is probably the most unique element of the rules, and it's the one I really like. I made these little magnets to help players track their orders on a custom command sheet. Unfortunately, Chow is not enjoying himself today, and if I'm honest, his fatalistic attitude is warranted.
Maybe you should pay Josh back a little quicker next time, huh, Chow?
Okay, you know what our overall command is? I order you to die. I plan to fully obey that order here today.
The situation on Cape Helles is hopeless, but his role now is simply to buy time. Remember, the Cape Helles table is only one of the tabletops our players are using simultaneously. There's action on 3 different boards, representing 3 key areas of the peninsula on day 1. Because Turkish communications have been severed, I set up the Cape Helles table in a different room to further isolate these players from the other sectors. In the middle of the peninsula, Griffin stationed the entire 9th Division as a powerful, concentrated reserve. This division, commanded by Tom, must now find a way to keep the peninsula from being cut in half by the Australians. Because Griffin had expected a strong Allied landing at Suvla Bay, considerable Ottoman forces are in position on the high ground. Griffin's orders on the morning of day 1 direct John, playing as Mustafa Kemal, to counterattack and hit Dave's Anzacs in the rear. This is a bold and promising plan, but once again, our Allied commander may be one step ahead. Retired Lieutenant General Rhys Jones did not commit every available man to his initial landing. He's held back 2 ad hoc brigades of British Royal Navy troops and given the commander of these men full autonomy to determine the best time and place to commit them for maximum effort. With a major Turkish counterattack brewing, that time could be right now.
I'm Tony. I'm playing General Paris, who's in charge of the Marine Infantry Division. I'm going to bring Howe and Hood ashore here at Landing Beach N. While there's some thick vegetation in here, the original forces in here drove into the highlands. I'm going to try and cross through the valley to Bayuk, cut off any chance of the Turks reinforcing that, and allow him an opportunity to collect that up in the bag, as it were.
Tony's battalions land without incident and maneuver inward from Suvla Bay. They will arrive on our northernmost table. The moment Tony's troops appear, he realizes that any dreams of pushing inland to Bayuk are just that, dreams. Wyatt has far too many Turkish troops bearing down on him for any advance. The British take up defensive stance, and Tony determines he will become a blocking force to keep these Ottomans from the main action. Those little dirt tracks going that way are just little dirt tracks. They're barely.
I've noticed as the game progresses here, Turkey is full of Turks. So many Turks.
There's a lot of Turks.
There's a lot of Turks here.
It might not look that way.
Are you British?
Hey, what are these extra tokens I have at the bottom?
We have 12.
Yeah.
2, 4,
How is Turkey not already a colony? What the?
Oh, so there's supposed to be 2 on each battalion.
Well, you can divvy them up however you wish. There's little doubt in our war game, the main action is unfolding on the southern slopes of Saribert. This is the big showdown, and it's at this moment when Chris, commanding the 1st Australian Division, faces a pivotal decision. His command has fought its way off Z Beach and is slicing across the peninsula. Will he press on to the coast and finish the job? Or will he respond to urgent calls for aid to the north, where a major battle is taking shape? In the heat of the moment, forced to make a snap decision, Chris veers north to come to the rescue of his Anzac comrade Dave. I'm not sure any of the players realize it yet, but this decision will have major ramifications later. But for now, we have elements of 4 divisions committed to battle on our central table. On the table just above this, Tony's British are bracing for a critical delaying action. On the table to the south, the Ottoman delaying action is already over.
So this is the end of turn 2. Very important to note, 2 turns, and my entire command, the entire 77th, has been obliterated from the southern tip of the peninsula. It's not surprising given that I was outnumbered more than 5 to 1 at the beginning of the scenario.
For an excuse.
But I do think
it's our job.
it's your job.
Nothing personal.
We had a conversation about this. This is the thing that happens in historical wargaming, is that as a competent general or commander in real life, you never want to fight an even battle. Right. You never want to engage where it's a 50-50 chance unless you have no other choice. So my position, though maybe not enviable and in a tough spot, you can't wring your hands and cry about it because this is the reality of warfare.
This is the benefit of a campaign. You want to have mismatched fights, and as a general in a campaign, my job is to find a way to do that.
How are you for casualties? My boys are fresh there with the...
I've lost effectively a battalion spread across 2 brigades. I'm actually not in bad shape. You might want to lead off the attack. You're a little bit fresher than me.
Of course.
And we'll
Just a battalion?
Just a
I
battalion.
lose that many in a training.
You've lost that in an afternoon in some other battles.
Did you see that dog navigate that door?
That's Gus. That's Gus the Wonder Dog. Come here. There you go.
Well, it turns out my reputation as a butcher didn't do a thing to the force, did it?
No, it did. You're a butcher of the Turks.
I like that. Huh. And Haig called me a rank amateur. Can you believe that?
British success on Cape Helles was inevitable, but Griffin would surely be disappointed to learn how quickly the defenses folded. Except, of course, communications to Cape Helles have been cut, so no one knows that Chow is already out of the game. Ed and Miles have a free hand to advance north. Following the standing orders from his superior, Ed organizes the entire 29th Division into march column to push up the coast and overrun the Turkish forts on the way to the Narrows. But the Ottomans aren't the only one missing critical information. Our allied players have no idea that an entire Turkish regiment is on the move.
Yeah, to me, I didn't anticipate the Allies trying to go through the Dardanelles because I figured it was mined. And so I figured, yeah, go ahead, ferry them across and put them wherever you want to. And so keeping guys in deep reserve for a possible anticipation of an unlikely assault from what at least I interpreted it as, I just figured they'd get better use. Anytime I'm on defense, I just want to keep pushing and attacking. I'm such a bad defensive commander. I always like to be on attack.
The Allied players have no idea that Griffin has ordered his only brigade in Asia Minor ferried across the strait. It's a move that will take most of the day to complete, but it will put him in a position to defend the Narrows from Ed's advance. Griffin makes this move without a critical piece of information. Do you remember when I said I made a poor die roll for communications in Asia Minor? Well, he doesn't know the French have landed there, and he just moved his only defending troops of worth across the straits to the other side. As Miles is organizing his Senegalese troops to march north, the overall Ottoman commander has no idea the Allies are in Asia Minor. This is precisely how the French were employed in 1915, but a moment ago you heard Griffin comment that he felt a repeat of history was unlikely. He was mistaken, because it's exactly what's happening again. And with the only defenders embarking to go west, the Allies will claim all of these victory locations with ease. Back on the peninsula, we have two very busy tabletops in action.
6. No! No!
You can finish your move.
Yeah, because you have sharp on you.
Well, I also.
And these guys, is that within 6 inches?
That's it. They're all.
Yeah. All right, next one.
So his next move you could react to.
Yes.
Good.
Tony is starting to have second thoughts about his role as a speed bump on the northernmost table. Turkish troops are suddenly appearing from every angle, entering the table from different directions. Wyatt's brigades are already on the table, advancing on the British. From the northeast, Gregg's 7th Division has arrived as reinforcements from off-map. And from the south, Tony is stunned to see Mustafa Kemal sending a brigade to surround him. Tony sees the Turkish trap closing around him and decides he won't get snared. He moves to pull back under fire and try to escape south. If he can make it, Tony's British would arrive to a warm Anzac welcome. The Allies on this table are on the offensive, particularly on Dave's wing. He's attacking up the slopes to secure Sari Bair, one of the highest peaks on the peninsula, a key victory location in the campaign.
I will react. Well, I'm going to hammer you again.
Okay.
But
He can react to that.
Reactive.
Right, but he'll react.
He'll react
To the
by
morale test.
he's going to spend his superpower to automatically pass this morale test.
So I roll the d6.
Now or reaction test.
1. He didn't.
That's awesome. Oh, that's horrible. Dude.
What? One more hit there.
Johnny Turk, get down!
Another signature mechanic in 1914 is the ability for one side to interrupt an opponent by attempting a reaction roll. These start at a 3+ for a fresh battalion, but reaction rolls can be made harder if a unit already received previous orders or suffered losses. The Turks may not be rolling well to react at Sari Bair, but as a game mechanic, I really like the friction this system imposes. I will admit, in playtesting for an event this large, I did brief our players before today's game on several custom tweaks I made to 1914 to try to speed up gameplay. You look in the rules and read about casualty rules, there's a lot of what ifs and this and modifiers and exceptions. No. They're all always hit on a 4+. That's it. No modifiers, no exceptions. All casualty rolls are a 4+. That's the way we've been playing if you've played in the last 3 weeks. If you're interested in learning more about these house rules I created to streamline 1914 and speed it up, I'm going to post a full summary of my revisions on the Little Wars TV website. Go to the free stuff section and you'll find my notes. Back on the tabletop, Dave is battling his way up the slopes of Saribera. If he does reach the top, he'd have a clear view north. The sight before him would be troubling. Tony's overmatched British are in full flight from 4 Ottoman battalions from the 7th and 19th Divisions.
Well, you may notice that there are only 4 of us now. We are no longer joined by Chow. We lost contact with Chow a few hours ago. I believe he's done his duty.
I'm sure he took as many as he
Took many breaks with him.
We hope. We hope. So we know the entire southern half of the Gallipoli Peninsula has been lost. We know there's a lot of British troops moving up the peninsula. Not sure where they're going. But on the northern half, on the 2 tables where the 4 of us are fighting, things are very interesting. You know, the question that we're debating is, are we digging in or are we counterattacking? And I think we made up a decision on that.
And that would be, we're getting ready to counterattack as
Oh, yeah.
our troops have left the one table, gone to the northern table, and now we're getting ready to move back to the middle table, attacking along the beaches.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of strength, you know, on the one kind of extreme flank where we're up against Dave. I think locally we're going to outnumber him about 3 to 1.
Yeah, it's
If
a good situation. It'll be surprising if he stays there.
Right. So he does have troops that are on part of the top of Saribera, so on that elevation, he's going to see us coming.
Mm-hmm.
And will he stand and fight? Will he pull back?
He's hightailing it out of there.
The Ottomans are in hot pursuit of the British, intent on throwing all of their weight against Saribera to hit Dave's Kiwis. As Tony's British begin crossing over to the new table under heavy pressure, Dave soon learns of the onslaught. He now faces a painful choice. He's so close to taking the mountain summit, literally a single move away on the table. But can he push on knowing a sea of Turks will crash down on him within the hour?
As an Anzac, it doesn't sit well with me to have to give up that land that my boys fought hard for. But the overall consensus of the Allies was to pull back and wait for the British to arrive. So hopefully Ed and the British can bring their usual pluck and help us carry the day on day 2.
It's not a withdrawal. It's a consolidation of the Allied positions.
Towards the rear.
Don't forget the French.
And the French!
Yes. How can we the French?
What of the French? Tell us, what of the French?
After 4 hours of tabletop action, the Allied players declare an end to offensive operations for the day. They are content to consolidate their gains and dig in for another round the following day. As the umpire, how do I assess the end of today's war game? Did the Allies do enough to secure victory? Comparing our outcome to April 25th, 1915, our wargamers achieved much more today. Critically, they also controlled the entire entryway to the Dardanelles, including the forts at the Narrows. But remember, in the operational phase of today's wargame, we gave the Allied players some key advantages that they did not have in 1915. We wanted to test Churchill's long-standing contention that his Dardanelles operation was a good idea, spoiled by rotten execution. But I think what we learned today is that even with hindsight, good landings, and aggressive execution, the Allies are still short of their full strategic aims. There is no decisive breakthrough, and the Turks are already drawing up formidable defensive front anchored on high ground. Our players may have pursued different strategies, but strategically, we still arrived at a deadlock.
Deadlock? Wait a minute. I wish to file a protest with the Admiralty. Our primary objective was the capture of the Narrows and forts on both sides of the strait. The Navy can commence sweeping operations with a path to Constantinople. Clearing the way for the Navy was always the aim of the campaign.
Your protest is noted, General, and you're not alone in your assessment.
You have to remember the overall aim of Gallipoli was to prevent the deadlock of the trenches in France. Would you just have another trench fight there in Turkey as well? Which we did. As one historian, Christopher Pugsley, who was one of the more prominent Gallipoli historians, said, this was never going to succeed. Of all the great what-ifs in history, Gallipoli was not one of them. Just because of the difficulties of terrain, the inadequacies of command and control, and no radios, no mobility. So commanders in the rear could not see the tactical situation on the front. It was a very difficult campaign to be able to do.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, looking at the map from the way I see it, if the only main Ottoman holdout is in the north here and the straits, that strait is controlled, I would say that the Allies are in a pretty favorable position in a way where, obviously in the historical Gallipoli, the only option they really had was to either continue slugging it out, dig in, or withdraw. I think at the very least, the Allies have more options on the table. Now it's not clear-cut between sit here and withdraw. I think maybe there's a couple other options you could think of. And certainly the Allies are in a more favorable position than they were historically, at least the way I'm seeing the map.
I'd say there is still an interesting battle to be fought, and it could go either way. But yeah, the big decisions at the end of day one with the Allies would be how strong are those Turks. So yeah, it's still an open game.
It seems our two overall commanders feel that is undecided. I only originally planned to run Gallipoli as a one-day battle to see how far the Allies could get. But I have to admit, I do feel like there's more to the story. Both sides have powerful reserves available for a second day. And so, during our post-game interviews, I asked both overall commanders what they would do if we extended the game just one more day. And so the first time ever in Little Wars TV, we're going to overtime. Join us soon for an unexpected part 3. Let's make this a trilogy. We want to thank both of our guests today, Rhys Jones and Griffin Johnsen. We know most of our viewers are already subscribers to the Armchair Historian, but he recently made a video on Gallipoli from the Ottoman perspective. It's the perfect historical companion to our What If wargame. We had a lot of fun with this wargame, but the perfect ending to this video is to remind everyone just how impactful Gallipoli was, even today, 110 years later.
The First World War was the first time that Australia, as a united country rather than individual colonies, and New Zealand as an individual country, participated in a large war. Both of us have been involved in South Africa, but this was the first time that both our countries suffered significant casualties in such a short period of time. And so in the midst of the development of the countries and in the, I suppose, the entire philosophy about how we develop as a country, Gallipoli is such a crucial aspect to that it has become, in both countries, the National Military Memorial Day. Interesting, it's also important for Turks as well, because Ataturk, who later became the leader of modern-day Turkey, was the commander at the spot. They saw this as one of their battles for their independence, their sovereignty as well, because it was a direct invasion of Turkish soil. And in the Gallipoli Peninsula, there was huge bravery on both sides, outstanding military feats of individuals, of units, and so on. But what all three countries now remember is that shared tragedy of the time when the politics were different, but really that's what unites us. We all had that tragedy. So Anzac Day is a really crucial day for Australia and New Zealand, and Turkey reflects that as well.
As we got closer, we were all getting tensed up now and nervous, wondering what was going to happen as everything was so quiet. Then a single shot rang out and a yellowish light flared up in the sky. From then, everything was let loose. Machine gun and rifle fire directed at the boats. As soon as the boats grounded, it was every man for himself. It was out. As we scrambled ashore, those were lucky enough to get there, we found what cover under the cliff we could. We slipped off our pack, fixed our bayonets, and someone in the crowd, there was no officer, no one in charge. The order was, right lads, after the bastards.
It was about the most precarious position a bloke could find himself in, you sort of made up your mind, well, we're here, and the only way he can get us off now is by carrying us off feet first.